Welcome back. A couple of weeks ago, I was happy to hear a talk that this lady presented, very informative, very inspiring, Mary George, who is the Placer County Director of Library Services.
I am.
And you showed a great many interesting facts and important things that are going on in the library system. You and your assistant, I thought, sold the audience on what you're trying to do, a great plan to save the library, how things may look a little bit different in the future, but it's all about saving it in the long run. So we're going to show that graphic that you gave us in just a few minutes, but wanted to have you tell people what exactly you do for Placer County at the library system. What involves your job?
Sure. I am proud to be the Director of Library Services. I've been the Director since 1/1 of 1/1, so since January 1st of 2011. One is a very lucky number, so I'm proud of that. What I'm not proud of is that when I became the director, we were in some pretty serious financial struggles.
Sure.
We were just coming out of the recession, you know, the long recession that started in 2008, and our libraries are funded mainly by property tax revenues. So by about 2011, we were really struggling. And so when I came to Rockland, and when you heard our presentation, we had the misfortune of having to tell the city council that we were going to have to close their Rockland Library and also the Auburn Library on Mondays. So we're starting to have to roll out some service reductions to the customers of our libraries because of this deficit situation that we're in now.
At this point, if I may ask, what do your finances show? How much do you have a shortfall of?
Right. Well, we're showing a budgetary structural deficit, which compounds year over year.
Yes.
And so we've been using, during the good times, we socked away some money into our savings or our reserves, and then we lived off of that for several years. We were over budgeting somewhere between $200,000 and $400,000 each year, and right around mid-budget, right around January, February, we would either turn the water faucet off or turn the water faucet on, depending on how much either salary savings we had from people leaving and retiring and us not filling behind, or from kind of managing our collection materials budget, which is one of our only discretionary funds. So somewhere between $200,000 and $400,000 year over year since about 2008.
When the
nine.
recession really got very, very bad.
Correct, right. So, I mean, we had prudent directors before that did kind of know that that was happening. We live in a fiscally conservative county, which is great for us, which has really sustained us through it. So we were fortunate to have savings. And I think we were hoping that the property values would come back up much quicker than they have.
Yes.
And so we're not realizing the savings fast enough to to keep our library sustainable right now.
Certainly. Now, last night you were at the Loomis Veterans Hall, I believe?
I was.
And you made the presentation concerning the Loomis Library future?
Right. We have been talking over the last few months. Right around January is when we decided that we really needed to do some big structural changes. And kind of what happened was we had a little bit of building problems in our Meta Vista Library, and we decided that it was appropriate time to say, hey, look, we should probably take a look at maybe thinking about moving that library or closing that library, and also closing another library in our system to try and get our budget balanced. We've known for several years that our structure, the way it's working, we have too many libraries for the property tax revenues that are coming in to fund them.
Sure.
And we didn't know what that actually meant until we did community analysis and hired a consultant to work a strategic plan for us that kind of showed us how people are using our library system, and also to identify trends that are happening in librarianship so that we could kind of have our finger on the pulse of how librarianship is changing. What we wanted to do is create a flexible plan that would allow us to maneuver no matter what our budget looked like. And what we found in that plan was really something much more grim and dire, which is just that we were never going to have enough money with the amount of libraries that we had in order to move into what future library services look like.
Okay.
So knowing what we knew and all the analysis that we had done prior to the building issues in Meta Vista, we decided to notify the Meta Vista and the Loomis communities that that their libraries were up for a potential closure. I, as the library director, don't have the authority to close libraries, nor do I ever really want to make those recommendations.
Yes.
But it's up to the Board of Supervisors to make those decisions. But it is my responsibility to let them know that we have to make a change.
Let's take a look at that graphic now, if we could, Rob, and this will explain some more of the financial picture. And I must remind people, according to a press release that Mike Fitch put out, who's with the Public Information Office, the Board of Supervisors has voted to delay a hearing, no, it's not a hearing, discussion on this particular thing that was slated for April 7th, because they want to see what can be done to try to alleviate the problem. Thank you, Rob. So there where we see the green is where you're...
The above the line is where we were saving, and then you see how it declines starting in 2009-10.
Yes.
The red is where we are starting to have to pull from our savings or reserves to cover our budget, the shortfall in our budget. There's a small little uptick in 2013-14, and that truly is on the backs of all of our employees. We didn't hire or bring anybody new in. We recognized huge salary savings that year just because we knew that the following year, look at how drastic that we fall off the cliff there. So. And
you mentioned in the video that that is on YouTube that due to attenuation or people retiring, you did not fill those positions.
Correct. That's correct.
And that was a very smart thing to do. I mean, that's what you have to do when you're tightening your belt fiscally.
Right. I mean, I do feel very proud of us for being so fiscally responsible. But the other side of the coin is that erosion is so deep now. You know, erosion is the loss of something that was formed. And our library system was formed in 1937. All of these libraries were formed as a county library system.
Yes.
And, you know, it's the charge of the county librarian or the library director to preserve and protect those libraries. And while we have preserved and protected them, we have eroded what they really mean and stand for our communities. Mm-hmm. And I think it's a perfect storm because we've had these fiscal challenges, but then we've had librarianship changing right in front of us so drastically with the introduction of e-books, electronic resources,
right.
With the way that folks use their libraries now.
Sure.
They don't just come to sit by a fire and warm their feet and read a book. You know, they expect all kinds of unique programming, and for us to be vital, we need to restructure, and we need an infusion of revenues to get us there.
I think one of the things that you point out in this video that was on YouTube was that people would rather go to a library, let's say close to a school or close to work or something. They don't go, as they traditionally did in the old days,
right.
They don't go to their local library in the neighborhood. Mm-hmm. They would rather hit the library while they're out doing other things.
Right.
And that's one of the strategies of trying to not necessarily make the library system smaller, but to make it more efficient, mm-hmm. and to centralize a lot of things and to bring a lot of these techniques into the 20th century so that you can share the resources of the library more easily.
Mm-hmm. While I totally understand the passion,
sure,
and it's heartbreaking to see, you know, the memories that people have of their local library. Mm-hmm. That is exactly right. I mean, the plan has always been to make all of the libraries that we have the strongest they can be. And what we've just realized with the revenues that we have, and we're fortunate to have dedicated property tax in Placer County to help support our libraries. But we have to be really strategic in how we spend those funds, especially since folks are asking us for so much more, for their library to be so much more.
Right.
So we feel that consolidating our resources to these libraries where people are using us most will allow us to increase our services there. So imagine with me libraries that are open from 7 in the morning until 7 at night, mm-hmm. or that have story times and Mother Goose on the Loose, like Jerry mentioned, not only just once a week, but every hour on the hour with different librarians to assist.
Yeah.
That's where we're going. If we have fewer facilities, we're hoping to offer more.
Right.
And one of the things that we found when we did do community surveys is that people really want us to offer more hours for working families, more evening hours, and more weekend hours, and more programming during those weekends so that they can attend.
I think also the fact that so many people are out of work and the unemployment numbers are so high that the library was taxed with a lot of people who came down there, people who don't have a computer
Right.
or don't have the money to pay for the internet service would come to the library to try to find a job, and therefore that took up a lot of your resources as well in a particular service that it wasn't expected to be overloaded.
That's correct. And, you know, folks need librarians in a different way than they used to need them as well.
Yeah.
We used to just be the information gatherers, and we would help you, you know, find a book that would give you the information that you needed. People come in and they're very vulnerable with us, which we love and appreciate. But they come in saying things like, I don't know how to use a mouse, or I want to connect a photo to an email so I can send it to my daughter. They're asking us for that kind of instruction and that kind of aid. And we want to be able to move and mobilize in that way. But because of the erosion, because we haven't been able to bring in new librarians that are trained in those areas, because we haven't been able to train the fine librarians and library clerks that we employ now, we're struggling being behind that curve of how people really want to use us.
So what is the plan now? How would the library of the future be changed if you could have your ways so that you'd be fiscally sound and you'd be able to provide services that you know people want? And at the same time, it would be a more strategic and wise use of the resources.
Well, if I had my druthers, I would have a library on every corner. They would be more prevalent than 7-Elevens all throughout the county. But because I don't live in that perfect world, what I have to do is try to imagine the best use of our resources in the places where folks are using us the most, that is most convenient for a majority of the amount of people to get to. And I have to help them recognize what true excellent library service looks like. It's all around us. El Dorado County has an excellent system. Roseville, the city of Roseville has an excellent system. And people will start to go to those other libraries rather than realize how excellent the Placer County library system could be with a few shifting of resources. It's very painful. It's very sad. It's very hard. It's hard to watch kids talk about, you know, the loss of their local library.
Yeah.
But sometimes you have to trim the tree branches in order to save the tree.
Certainly.
And so that pretty much is the situation that we're in now.
Well, the other thing is too is, you know, when Ben Franklin started the library system, all they wanted was these tomes, these books. Now kids come to your library to get DVD of Young Indiana Jones adventures that they missed because they were too little when they first came out.
That's right.
So people are looking for a whole different class of materials now. They're looking for access to computers, they're looking at DVDs, looking for Kindle.
Right.
Looking for all kinds of other things that didn't exist
Right.
in the library system 30 years ago.
That's right. And when other library systems were taking their cuts, you know, and ratcheting down their hours and closing their doors in 2008 when the recession hit, we stayed open. We made a conscious choice to do that because we knew people needed us. And so now we need them to understand that we're in a pickle. And a lot of really smart folks are around this issue, talking about it, thinking about it, and have been doing that for a number of years. And there's been a number of pleas to the board to increase our funding, but the board has very difficult decisions to make. They have 24 departments vying for their money.
Yeah.
And frankly, public safety and fire, roads, all of those things are very important to Placer County citizens as well as their libraries. So I understand how difficult it is to make those decisions. It's only a finite amount of money. So it's my job to make sure that when we do go for the asks, that we're a good investment, that we're sustainable, that the board knows where we're going in the future, that they're proud of that we're all proud of every Placer library that is left standing, and that we understand what the vision is.
What can people in the audience do if you were to ask people in the audience to support the cause here? What word can we get out to them to help the library system? And then I'll make a final point before we finish.
Sure. so counterintuitive. But what I would say to them is try to push past the nostalgia of your library. Try to go in there and look with fresh eyes at the materials, at the hours that the library is open, at the programming that is happening, and make a real conscious choice to take a look at other libraries outside of our system and to see how those things compare. When I was a little girl, I used to ride my horse to the Applegate Library, which is one of the libraries in Placer County. And I love that story in my head, how I used to fill my bag up with books and go wander off into the woods for hours reading. But when I really think of those stories as an adult, what I'm starting to realize more is that more often than not, when I went to the Applegate Library, it was closed because we couldn't afford to keep the library open as many hours as I wanted to use it.
Right.
And what I'm trying to create, I think, for the future is a library where the door is always open and there's always something going on.
Before the show, we talked about some of the points that you wanted to address, and let me know in just a moment if we've addressed them all, so we won't leave anything out. But one thing that I think there was a misconception of, which please take the time to clear up now,
Sure.
was that the establishment of the Rockland Library did not drain your agency financially. That was something I think that came up at one of the meetings,
Right.
where somebody came up and said, well, nice new fancy building, two-story, as compared to what is now the Parks and Rec building. Did you folks splurge and use a lot of money? And of course, that's not the case.
No, quite the contrary. I was the Rockland branch manager for 10 years before I moved into administration, and I was there from the time that there were only 14,000 people living in Rockland to the growth of 55,000
Wow.
people. And so we had to address that. We couldn't stay in the library that we were in with that kind of influx and population growth.
Sure.
And the Board of Supervisors and the library director at the time were very prudent in their planning for additions to facilities. And it took a number of years for that library to be built. And quite honestly, it was kind of filed away. There wasn't really much momentum around it until the city decided to purchase that commercial site that the library is currently in with redevelopment funds, and said, we want to revitalize downtown Rockland, and what better way than to move the library into this bigger facility. And then what we did is we bought all the shelving from a Borders bookstore that was closing in Roseville. And so we refurbished the library all with materials that we brought over from the old library.
Yep.
So we came in way under budget to reconstruct and finesse that building.
Nice job.
We added technologies so that we didn't have to bring in as many staff as we originally wanted for the Rockland Library for efficiencies, self-service. And we really did a nice job of efficiently building that library and creating a lovely space. But we couldn't have done it without the city of Rockland, who still owns the building and leases it to us for $1 a year.
Very good. Did we make all the points that you wanted to address this evening?
I think so.
Good.
Do you feel like you have a better understanding of the library issue?
Yes, I did. And for 15 years, I've been a patron of the library, and I've been recalcitrant in the past. I've sinned.
Oh, is this your sin right here that we're looking at?
You're the top library cop. Why should I tell you?
So how overdue is that book?
Oh, it's not overdue yet. It's not overdue yet. But here is my gimmick that I want to do. See, here's my Lion's coat of arms book. This is a book that's absolutely terrific called Peter Falk. Just one more thing. It's his autobiography. I got this book at the Loomis Library. Because when I heard about the possibility that it might close, I wanted to go down there and take a look at the place. I hadn't been there in many years. So this is what I'm going to do. With your permission, if you don't mind.
Okay.
Just one more thing I'm going to do before I bring the book back.
That's a very nice impression.
I know. He taught me how to do it.
Okay.
Okay, I'm going to take this book back one day late, and I'm going to make a contribution of $10.
Oh, very nice.
So I want all of you out there who go down to the library, get a book, keep it one day late, come back, give them $10. Because your library needs your support. It'll have to change for the future just to keep up with the 21st century, but as you've explained tonight, the benefits will be terrific.
I hope so.
And I appreciate very much your being with us this evening. I know it was short notice. I apologize if it cut into what little time you have left, because you are making the rounds and trying to explain this to a great many people.
No, I appreciate the time, and thank you very much for your interest and your use of the library.
Want you to come back.
Will do anytime.
And we can do the same thing for you that we do. I don't know if you saw the Channel 4 ad, but we do these for the Rockland Library many times.
Nice.
I think we've got one coming up for partnership with Reuse It, is it? Yeah.
Yep.
We have one of those running. We'll be happy to. I'll send you the template, send you the information so that you can give us one for the Placer County.
Could I ask a favor? Would you mind plugging the video?
Of course.
Yeah, get people to maybe take a look at the Placer County website and.
Yes. Go to the Placer County website at placer.ca.gov/department/library, and you'll be able to see a very finely produced and very easy to understand video. Even I understood it. It was easy as reading this book.
Okay, good.
So thank you very much for being with us.
Thank you for having me.
And thank you for being with us. Did you want to come up and take a bow? No. Okay. We have some other members of the Placer County Library System who are here along with Mary supporting her, and we appreciate very much the time they took. In the meantime, follow my example. Take a book, keep it a day late, come back, give $10. Or you don't even have to do that. Take a book out for one day and bring it back the next day and say, oh, I'm sorry, it was late, here's $10. Tell them Peter Falk sent you. We'll see you again next week. Thanks, everybody. Good night.
Good night.